Quiz 11, question 2. This question asks about which of the following is an example of neurologic compensation, otherwise known as indirect recovery mechanism. So we all know now this concept of neuroplasticity, that the brain can change, the brain changes itself as part of the healing process, but the brain can also change with the use of skilled rehabilitation. And that's where we come in as physical therapists. So we have to understand the basic science part of neuroplasticity and both the direct and indirect mechanisms of recovery. So what this question is asking you is to identify an indirect recovery mechanism. So thinking back to the information that you read online, there are actually 4 direct ways for recovery regarding neuroplasticity and 1 indirect way. You also have to keep in mind that there are a lot of synonyms used in this chapter as well, just like in the balance chapter. There were synonyms for the types of balance. There are synonyms for the types of recovery for neuroplasticity. So your choices are cortical remapping, reactive synaptogenesis, regenerative synaptogenesis, and resolution of cerebral edema. We'll go through each of these because there are those 4 direct mechanisms and 1 indirect. The 4 direct mechanisms are the regeneration, the regenerative synaptogenesis of a damaged neuron itself. That's direct. It is that neuron involved. Reactive synaptogenesis. This is otherwise known as collateral sprouting. Okay, so reactive synaptogenesis is the same as collateral sprouting, meaning a neuron that does a very similar job, if not the same job, right next to or in the vicinity of the damaged neuron will kind of sprout off and help that damaged neuron out to create a new synapse. The resolution of cerebral edema is, once that edema and fluid has moved out, then the area that was damaged will start to recover on its own. And unmasking, okay, is another type of direct mechanism where some neurons, again in the same area where the damaged one is, that have been silent, that haven't had to do their job, will start to wake up because there's been damage in that area. Those are all direct mechanisms. This question was asking you to find the indirect, so that leaves the last choice of cortical remapping. So now let's compare this to like a highway system. We have, in order for example, to get from St. Augustine to Jacksonville, the most direct way is going to be I-95. But if there's a traffic jam, you still want to get there directly, so the next best option would be US 1. It goes the same direction as I-95. It serves the same exact purpose to get you from St. Augustine to Jacksonville or vice versa. That would be perhaps like unmasking. Okay, so it's right next there, and we're going to open it up so that you can directly still get to where you need to go. It's pretty quick, still efficient. Now, going an indirect route, okay, and this is where I'll relate it to the cortical remapping. So an indirect route to get from St. Augustine to Jacksonville would be, let's say we have to go all the way over to Gainesville, and then we got to go up I-75 to I-10, and then we got to come all the way across back to Jacksonville. That's very inefficient, takes a long time, and is a very indirect way to get to where you need to be. Very much like cortical remapping. This is where an area of the brain, so if you think of the homunculus, an area of the brain is taking over for another area of the brain, that they had completely separate jobs. So if we look at the wrist and hand, okay, and somebody's had damage to their wrist and hand from, say, a stroke or a brain injury, then let's say the shoulder and the arm area of the brain can actually take over the job of the wrist and the hand with this concept of intense, repetitive, skilled task practice. And this is what happens with cortical remapping, and there is evidence to support this through studies of constraint-induced movement therapy, but it is an area of the brain that basically does some job retraining and takes over another area's job. Okay, that is cortical remapping. It is indirect, takes a long time, isn't always the most efficient. Okay, so key for this question: 4 direct methods, 1 indirect method. Okay, thank you.